Not seeing a remote. Yeah. Okay. Weekly finance meeting of the commissioners today, February 2, 2022. Now 1:30 having arrived. Begin with, well, we don't need a roll call this time. We do have public comment item here. Looks like we have some guests. We do have business to conduct here as well. So would ask any public comment to abide by our standard policy of the 3 minutes. Anyone who speaks, please identify yourself and your place of residence, or at least your municipality residence. So with that.
Teresa Martin online.
Okay, very good. Let's start with folks from on site first.
Hello. Hello,
Okay, Teresa.
Yes,
Go ahead.
my name is Teresa Myers. I live in Upper Mifflin Township, Newburgh, with the Newburgh address. Part of it is Newville too, but I'm the Newburgh address. And I've been following the sale of the Claremont Nursing and Rehabilitation Center. And the one thing that made me sad was for the employees. I know that the government jobs tend to have good wages and good benefits, and that's the one reason that I was sad. But I knew the residents would be taken care of because many counties have sold their nursing homes. I also think that at this time I was listening, and I guess the sale might be final within days. I do think that with the staffing problems that nursing homes all over the country are experiencing, plus with the low occupancy rate, that the county government would have had to use property taxes to subsidize the nursing home. And I think that that would have been a burden to all county taxpayers, not just the few that would benefit. But you're going to hear from someone today who's going to talk about a very good idea for using the money that the county is going to get from the sale. And Cumberland County is special. And I believe part of that reason is the county government with you three leaders have been innovative as well as good stewards of county money. But this idea I strongly support, and I hope that you will be open to it, because it will make us even more unique in the state, and it is quite special. So someone else will be talking about that, but that's all I wanted to comment. I wanted to thank you for the sale. I know that Jean Foshee is against it, and I understand that. But overall, I think it's good for the majority of county taxpayers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other callers? We have any other callers? Okay.
And Bridget, that was Teresa Martin?
Myers.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, already provided an opportunity for public comment. I had no take, from what I could tell, so we'll.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, okay, ma'am. So identify yourself.
I'm here, yes. I have some support, but I'm Dr. Barbara Forney. I'm president of Friends of Claremont. And I have something for each of you. Please don't count this in my 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Friends of Claremont represents not only Republicans, but represents Democrats. We are a nonprofit organization, and we have a concept in this folder that we would like you to consider. The money from the sale of Claremont should not go into the general fund. You have money from the American Rescue Plan Act, which you can use for some of your projects that you would like to use money for. And county's not in bad shape financially. The concept, and that's all it is a concept. Do not know what it could be called, but it's similar to what the sale of the Carlisle Hospital became. The money there was used and made it into a foundation to help the less fortunate with medical issues. So the money from the sale of Claremont could do the same thing, but in a different way. It would help the needy and elderly of Cumberland County. Cumberland County has always been a forward-thinking county. It's a fast-growing county. Lots of tax-paying money. Industries. So what we're hoping for is for the benevolence of the commissioners for continued care of the needy and elderly of Cumberland County. Not all nursing homes will take Medicaid patients. So it's very important that there is a way to continue to care for the people who do not have the money to pay for their care. Claremont was a really good self-sustaining entity. AAA bonds. And it is something that can continue. And of course, a private company doesn't have to follow any of the guidelines that are set up. They can do their own thing. And therefore, we've got to do something to keep the people who need help, whether it's in-home help or nursing home help. We've got to do something to keep them safe and able to continue living. Friends has a wonderful group of adults who've done a lot of good things for the residents. And we hope to continue doing that. And we hope to continue doing that through the help, your help. Because we know that you are basically benevolent people. You care about the county, or you wouldn't be sitting where you sit. It's a concept. Please look at it carefully. And please give it your utmost consideration. Any questions?
I think we'll need to look at this first. It probably would have been helpful to have this in advance of a media event, frankly, but we have it in hand. We'll certainly be taking a look at it. I will say this, that sale has not reached its full culmination yet. As a general practice, we don't spend money we don't have. So there has not been any detailed consideration of what would happen to the sale. I guess I do have one question. So without having read this, you're basically asking us to turn the money over to you.
No, not at all. Read the paper.
Okay. All right, so it doesn't have to be, you're mentioning Friends of Claremont and you keep repeating about them. So that's why I'm saying.
Well, we support the concept.
Concept, okay, all right.
Yeah, it's a concept. It has not been fleshed out. It needs to be fleshed out and considered. You know, the sale of the Carlisle Hospital was a very, the way it worked out has helped a lot of people here in the county, and as I understand it, there's going to be a satellite office in the West Shore. So it's things like this.
Mhm.
We need to go in maybe a different direction. I mean, okay, so you want to sell?
We'll certainly take a look at this. I do feel a little compelled to point out that, a number of things you said are not correct, and we've been trying to dispel some of those myths. The idea that private companies can do whatever they want is not true. There are regulatory standards in place. Claremont and private homes have to meet the same regulatory standards.
Oh, yes, I know they're regulated. But they still have a lot of involvement that they can do on their own and choices they can make. I've had a mother in a facility, 2 facilities, and a mother-in-law in Claremont. So I'm very aware. And I was raised by my grandmother and grandfather, who were born in the late 1800s. So I have a lot of love and respect for older people who need help.
Dr. Forney, I'm happy to look at the concept paper and to consider it.
Good.
Thank you.
And you also received another note from me about monies that it was an email several weeks ago.
Yes, regarding Friends of Claremont.
Okay.
And I believe Stacy Snyder, our Chief Operating Officer, responded.
I did,
Yeah.
Okay,
I did.
all right. Thank you.
Oh, and Stacy, I don't want you to be left out.
Thank you. I was gonna ask, thank you.
You're welcome.
Barbara, I'll too look at the concept. I can't comment it because
Of
of
course.
the concept.
It's
But
not,
thank you for taking your time.
it's
to be
not
here.
this big. It's several
Right.
pages.
Okay.
I will read it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kovler,
Can I sit down here?
as you wish.
Well, I'm Rick Copeland. I'm a proud resident of Dickinson Township, and I'm here backing up my military background, telling you I'm here to provide supporting fires for Barbara. I know you all get that. In other words, I'm supporting what you just heard. I think she did a fabulous job of explaining it. I'm sorry you haven't had a chance to read through this in detail yet, but you'll have that opportunity, and we appreciate, everything you do for the citizens of Cumberland County. I'm going to go ahead and read one paragraph so that everybody, listening can understand. The funds would be invested, key word there, and I know everybody gets the sense of that. In other words, this is something that could go on in perpetuity, just like the Partnership for Better Health. And that's part of, and I don't have any pride of authorship here. I'm just supporting it. But it's a brilliant idea, and I'm here to support it by telling you the rest of the story. The funds would be invested, and only a standard percentage of the fund balance would be used for Cumberland County citizen needs, which align with Claremont's historical and current mission to assist the indigent county residents and those who are elderly and in need of long-term care, including housing, in-home, and other supportive human services. This use could also include investments in workforce and program development for the indigent and those with long-term care needs to benefit Cumberland County's poor and elderly. The intent would not to be to replace any services that are funded through Medicaid, and to allow the fund's principal balance to continue to grow over time. And great question and point. There's nothing in here that says you're going to turn the money over to a citizens group. It would still be under the control of the county. Clearly, as part of this, when you get a chance to read, I think another really brilliant idea in here is that an advisory committee is set up. I'll call it a cross-sector collaborative effort, which I think is government best practices. In other words, you'll see, I won't read them all, Cumberland County Aging Service Director, Finance Director, municipalities representatives, private sector representatives. So the idea is that an advisory committee, bring in all these folks, would be providing you advice on how to spend the money to do all the things that I just mentioned. So I'm just going to quickly wrap up, maybe not just yet, but you're thinking strategically. You always do. And we applaud you for that. This is a strategic, long-term thinking kind of concept for health and elder care. There's a proud tradition here, Barbara mentioned that, of Claremont and the Cumberland County doing all these sorts of great things to help people. And I want to just say, and she mentioned too, I'm reinforcing some things here, a little redundancy, but the sale of the hospital brilliance by our predecessors, who then said, let's take that, turn it into a partnership for better health. I think exceptionally well run by Becca Rayleigh these days, doing a great job helping people, and that's a thing that will go on hopefully forever. One of the things I like to say when we think about government decisions is think about the impact not only on the people today, but on their children, their grandchildren. This does that. The whole idea of something in perpetuity does that exceptionally well.
Even you all are gonna get old someday.
Oh, we're invincible, come on. So I'll just wrap up by saying long-term positive impact for the elderly and their children and their grandchildren. I think best practices, cross-sector collaborative thinking. And I mentioned, as just alluded to there with workforce, you can take this in all sorts of different directions to help folks. So it's innovative. Thank you very much for your time.
Anything additional? Okay, we have business items we'll move on to then. Thank you all for being here. We have the approval of the minutes of our meeting of January 12th. And we are acting on those.
Move to approve the minutes of January 12th.
A second that motion.
Okay,
If you have a spare copy.
it's moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, very good. All right, we have 3 topics of discussion today, finance management related. And kind of Treasurer Kelly Neiderer is here to profile some of these.
Yes.
So the floor is yours.
Okay. Commissioners, I sent a memo regarding the current process we have established for the tax claim deposits. Those deposits that I'm referencing, the credit card deposits that go into a separately established tax claims account with the county. Those deposits could have gone into the general fund directly, but because of the arrangement that was established to have them clear, I call it clearing, they're clearing through the tax claim deposit account. We have to usher a warrant around for multiple signatures in order to move the monies once they become collected. Because these are general fund monies, I am asking for you to consider waiving the warrant requirement to simply move the monies once they become collected into the general fund where they could have gone day one. So I believe, and my predecessor, John Gross, is here. If you wanted background or a question that I couldn't answer as to why it was set up, I simply believe it was for to allow that time for the things to become collected, to make balancing the general fund daily more easy, and also to not expose the general fund as an account to chargebacks. However, historically, we've seen none that I've seen in my couple of years here, and prior to that, I don't know that as you know, people recollect in the office, we've had any as well. So they would still continue to go into the one account, but we just would like to move them without the iterations of a warrant. I did share this with Bob DeGrossa of the Controller's Office, and Dana Best from Finance is here also, and I think that they're in agreement that this would not create any hardship for them or be outside of county code. And I'm not misspeaking.
And a cash deposit will still be done, so tax claims
Okay.
will still be giving Kelly something to say, move the money. We just won't have to do all the.
So the recommendation of finance is positive.
Absolutely.
And commissioners, I would like to just point out, Kelly, you would like this approval if the board would agree for all clearing accounts, correct?
If we, of the general fund, so that's a great point, Stacy. For example, drug and alcohol may begin to accept credit cards for people that are going through programs there. That we would prefer to go to a clearing account before going into the general fund as well. But it would not be for those funds that are direct, such as the recycling that goes directly into the accounts related with that. It is only monies that are intended for the general fund, but we keep isolated until they become collected.
Any other questions on that? Anybody? John, did you wish to say anything on that?
No, I was here to provide support
when Kelly reached out to me, that account was established really in collaboration originally because we didn't want to, it was a security measure with the with the controller's office, then the treasurer's office and IMTO. We didn't want to have so many multiple entities having access to the county's general fund account. So that's why we established that clearing account for you.
Okay. All right. So do we need action on this today, Stacy, or is that what you were implying, or?
Due to the sunshine law, we're putting in possible motion in case there is action. You would like to take action today, but I don't believe the timing is that we must have action today. If you'd like to consider it, we could certainly schedule this for another finance meeting if you so choose, or even the Board of Commissioners meeting on Monday for approval, if that would give you enough time to discuss and determine if you have any other questions.
So which is the group?
I'm fine with moving on it today.
Gary, if I can add one other comment, those measures were put in place because of some regulations in the county code that needed those multiple signatures. And it was from one cash account to another, but that was the only reason. But it does create a hardship and time constraint.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine to move forward.
All right, well, entertain a motion then.
All right, I will move to approve the use of clearing accounts to capture credit card payments that are general fund collections, with said payments being tracked and managed daily with transfers occurring once the monies have been received into the clearing account.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. The second, yes, the second item is a discussion really on the investment policy. So the investment policy is that we are currently operating under as a county is very dated. I took the liberty along with some of my colleagues in the controller's office, that would be Mike Clapsaddle, and in the finance office, Dana Best, to take a run at updating this to more accurately reflect the way that investments are structured, being managed between our departments, along with just updating due to some change in regulation.
This is the same thing we discussed at retirement. Is that right?
No, this is our the county's
Oh,
investment
this is-
policy.
Got it.
For, I believe it's been utilized when you have done a bond issuance and you receive bond funding, or it outlays the parameters how we typically will do just even purchasing CDs or money markets, making daily investments of general fund money or any cash account. So we spent a bit of time, and I think I shared with you the red line to try and make it more clear, which was a total mess. But I would like you to actually just consider it. There was an item that was of consideration. I believe I had removed something from it that I'm not certain we want to actually remove. So I'm actually not requesting approval today. I would like you to look at it. There are different suggestions. I did provide a clean copy with all of the edits accepted. We were debating mortgage-backed securities and holding those as a potential investment. And while I don't think they're appropriate on a short-term 12-month basis, if there are funds that we would ever want to hold beyond 12 months, we may want to utilize some of those as an investment option. So if you could take a look at it, it is your policy. It is not mine. It is your policy to write. We just took the liberty of trying to make some suggestions on editing and updating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, Kelly. This is something that's been on our plate for multiple years to update. It matches closer to the distribution of the workload between our offices and who manages what. The old policy actually had it in the reverse of how we actually function. So we did update that, and that is one of the, I think, one of the most important things to do. One of the other things is we increase the amount of, that we can have in any one bank at a time. Because at the time of year when we're getting our tax in, it's very hard to keep it at 35%. We end up losing a substantial amount of revenue because we have to go with a low interest rate to get the money spread. So some of the things that we're doing is to make sure the banks are staying in good financial shape, and that'll be tracked. So having up to 40% in any one bank at any one time, I don't think will be an issue. And we still will not earn every bit of interest we could because of spreading it out, but it won't be nearly as intense.
Okay.
Is there anybody from the controller's office?
I don't know if they're on. Bob was, and Mike may be on.
The, do we have any representative from controller's office on who wants to comment on it? Since you were part of the decision? Doesn't sound like there is, so.
Mike provided great feedback to the process, and Jennifer Hip, also in the solicitor's office, has been involved in this as well. Yeah, so while I believe we are really very, very close, I would like to have a couple folks look at it before I would say that this is what would be our final suggestions for you. And I would like your feedback as well, if there are things that you would like removed or included in the policy. And quite honestly, the policy discussion leads into the third item on the, oops, I'm sorry.
John, did you want to offer anything on this?
I did not see it, so
I did
I,
not see it. Okay, all right, okay. Please proceed.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. It leads into the next discussion. The existing policy allows for individual account management. We have, to the best of my knowledge, and again, I will defer to the longer tenured folks in the audience, we have not sought out individual portfolio management for our excess funds. And I am asking your consideration for doing so. At this time, quite honestly, we have a lot of balances with anticipated additional funding. And I'll be very candid, the banks are overwhelmed with deposits, and quite frankly, they just don't necessarily want more. And our deposits are costly because they're the collateralization requirements to them. So one other item, I'm sorry, I will back up. One other item that is in the new policy, it allows us to work with insured credit unions, which was not a part of the other policy that existed and is permitted under statute and county code now as amended. So it would allow us to also work with credit unions, which is part and parcel with the third item. We need more outlets, quite frankly, for deposits, or we need to consider perhaps taking some of the monies, if we are going to have them for an extended period of time, and consider some more unique portfolio management to that. We currently have, essentially the 24 million in the ARP funds. March will have our tax collections hit, of which you all know we receive, what is it, Dan? Oh, like 95% within the discount period. We will be getting the second round of ARP. If there is a sale of the nursing home and there are proceeds as well along with that, our fund balances will just be very, very large. And as I don't think decisions, on some of the funds will be made quickly, we may have time in order to set them aside and have them individually managed by a manager. And I think that the yields that they're obtaining, I did look at a few sample portfolios. by one of our providers to the pension board. And they were getting, 50 and 75 basis points with net of fees. So that is substantially more than what we're seeing in our current either a CD or a money market. So my conversation is simply, while it's allowed for in the existing investment policy, I don't know that it's something that the county has ever done with their general fund money. And I'd like your consideration for that. What I was also going to suggest is that we could, the group that's kind of been engaged in this, Mike Clapsaddle from the Controller's Office, Bob DeGrossa, Dana and I, and maybe some other folks from finance, could screen our banking partners and some of our other advisors, have them, give us sample portfolios, and we would select 3 to, be presented to you.
I have 1 or 2 questions.
Yep.
Okay.
Fire away.
Unfortunately, I'm old enough to remember that a lot of the points you just stated were the same points we heard prior to the S&L crisis. So my questions stem from that, which is the standard for the credit unions that we might consider. Now, there have been a lot of credit unions that have come on stream just in recent years. And I know there's a minimum threshold that has to be met there. Are we talking about simply opening the doors to all credit unions?
No.
Would there be asset thresholds?
We don't define the asset thresholds in the policy, but we do define how they are insured.
Okay.
So there are insurance requirements to them as well. And the they are collateralizing deposits in the same way that the banks are collateralizing deposits. So we would require, certainly we would require the collateralization of the.
Okay. And you and I have had this discussion before regarding the collateralization. So there's how it was done before, there's how we're allowed to do it now. So when you mentioned about the earlier about my answer insufficient here, but the collateralization requirements, are we talking about the state's requirements, or are we talking about the county has its own?
The banks are actually more held accountable to collateralizing public deposits. So what we are seeing, Gary, just on a functional basis, banks do it differently. So and it's odd to me how some choose to do it, but many of the banks that we're dealing collateralized by the line of credit at the Federal Home Loan Bank. Others supply a fairly lengthy list of all of the various, things that their treasury bills and things that they've identified as the collateral for the accounts. They actually give the pool. They're pooled, so they provide a listing of all of those assets that are set aside on their bank's books to ensure all of the public money that they have on deposit.
And just so for clarity's sake, and so we do, there was a time when John was in office, we didn't allow them to pool. So, but that's now, it is permissible
Correct.
for the county to do it. Okay.
Yeah. And, it's funny because quite honestly, I was asking Mike Clapsaddle, I was trying to dig more on what is our responsibility, and particularly mine, I was concerned about mine individually for assuring that the banks are doing their job, because there are many entities across the county that use the county's tax ID number for deposits, the tax collectors. I don't know that if a tax collector is dealing with F&M, that account is collateralized. So Mike assured me they do check that annually at the end of the year for all of the accounts that are outside of my purview. We are given documentation from the banks that we deal with very regularly, most monthly, not all, because sometimes those letters of credit are for 60 days instead of 30. So it's all on a different time schedule, but we have collateral records. And that's actually one of the items in the investment policy. It indicated that they were in finance. They're technically in the treasurer's office. So it's all kind of interrelated as it as it is to just trying to this situation we're in, which is wonderful to be having deposits. It's just challenging in this environment to be managing them as efficiently as possible. And I would like to see, it does not mean, that you all will approve ultimately, segmenting these funds in an investment portfolio. But with the help of finance and the controller's office, I think we could get a pretty good idea of what we're going to have available to just set aside for a 12-month period and maybe look at some longer term returns on those.
This list of the security types, has that been revised recently?
Yes.
Okay. And the reason I ask is because while these may be permissible, I know there was at one time, again, back to John, where some of these were items that we consciously chose not to invest in.
And Gary, that's the mortgage-backed securities that I'm talking about. I pulled them. Mike has an aversion to them, and rightfully so after the market crash. And I believe now there's a lot more due diligence on understanding what's either in the portfolio, and they're not and most people do not recommend holding one security. It's usually, a blend, but they are really more long-term. And so I did remove them, but I'd like to just think about them a second too. But you're exactly right. So that's something we're completely eligible to be involved in. We may choose not to. And I think anybody that, while this is our policy, anybody that would craft a portfolio, we would want to make very clear to them where our comfort level was with various investment types.
Very good.
So, yes, so I guess I don't know that it requires necessarily a motion, but if you are open to considering this independent management of a fund, if you would be comfortable with the group I mentioned, kind of going down that path of exploring it, or a presentation to you, I would welcome that.
So you're just looking for an okay to proceed with the exploration phase.
Yes, yeah. And we'll be back together on the actual final update to the investment policy. But like I said, the existing policy permits private management as it is. But if we would move forward, we would want to finalize the policy, though, to give the folks the fullest breadth of opportunity.
Kelly, with these portfolio management of excess funds, I'm assuming that there would be a minimum amount that would be invested.
Probably, Jean, just from a cost perspective,
Okay.
and it depends on who might, and each investor may have their limit and their threshold, but it would have to be net, like we would want to return net of fees. And I'm thinking it's going to be anywhere in the 20 to 25 million mark, where it's going to make sense to do it, quite frankly. And like I said, I've been digging around, and one of the sample portfolios I saw was, I believe, 25 million.
Okay.
So, and while we may shoot for a 12-month investment horizon, there would always be components within it that would be available on a shorter term than full 12 months. So it would be a laddering of a bunch of the instruments that you see in the policy.
Thank you.
One last question occurred to me in looking at that is simply that now some of these some of these vehicles actually are intermingled with the others. They have components of the others in them. So is there going to be sufficient transparency for us to know what these investment pools or the money market funds are holding? So that if we're trying to steer away from one particular asset class, that we are aware of what we're invested in.
Yes, I would expect that anyone that would present to us would get very granular. And then, compared to what you can obtain as an individual investor, their universe for what they can do for governments is already fairly
Yes.
small. So, anything that they would present to us would get pretty granular on what the exact investments were, or to your point, Gary, if it were mutual funds, what made up those funds. They could drill down pretty nicely on that.
Good. Perfect.
So,
That's all I-
yeah.
I'm supportive, Kelly. In fact, I can't think of a reason not to proceed. So,
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Commissioners?
I'm fine with proceeding.
Okay.
Yeah, with the exploration. Right.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, yeah,
That sounds
Very
good.
good. And then I will maybe touch base with you each individually or for your thoughts if you have anything you'd like added to the investment policy. Or and then if not, just do one more final consideration on the mortgage-backed securities, and we'll go from there.
Very good. Any more for us?
Nope, that's it for me.
That's good.
thank you.
Sorry to bore you all.
No, it's very important stuff. That was a bit details.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay, great. That concludes our topics for discussion that were agenda driven, which moves us to item number 5. That is other business. So there are additional items to come before the Commissioners' Finance Committee. Any additional? If not, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.